I'll tell you, one of the first things I want to do when I go to Washington is I want to vote for a new Speaker of the House. I'll be honest with you, we have 3,500 bills that we deal with in a 2-month period in the Virginia General Assembly, and I don't remember the specifics of that legislation, but I can tell you a little bit about my principles. I think one of the things that we have to do in terms of Medicaid, Medicare funding, we have got to look at ways to reduce costs. So to the extent that there are new products on the market that allow us to reduce costs for health care, that's what we have got to do that. As Laurence Verga said, we have got to do that. And so I think that that would probably be a principle that would guide me. As far as personal and real estate rights, property rights, I have always fought to keep the government from taking property in Virginia from Virginians without due process. And that, of course, is found in the 5th Amendment of the Constitution. And I have fought to strengthen eminent domain laws. That was absolutely one of the most important things for the Farm Bureau during my period, during the time I've been in the legislature, is we've got to protect those personal rights to property. We've got to. And we've got to do it at the federal level as well. Thank you.
A supporter of the fair tax. When I started this campaign 9 months ago, it was the first thing that went up on my website. No one else I saw that. I looked at all the websites, no one else had it. And over the course of the last 9 months, as I preached the fair tax and all of the things that the fair tax would bring to our country, the $11 trillion that will flow from offshore bank accounts into our economy, ready for investments in infrastructure. When I talk about the foreign manufacturers that will flow into our country to be able to compete here on American soil, the jobs that would be created, the amount of revenue, the flow of the tax. When I talked about these things one by one, my competitors came on board. Last week we were at a forum, and every one of them said they would support the fair tax because they've listened to me evangelize about the fair tax. I am the first supporter of the fair tax. I am an ardent supporter of the fair tax. I will sponsor it, co-sponsor whatever I have to do to get it out of the floor and to make it the law of the land. So I am a fair tax supporter.
Clear, I'm all in favor of eliminating the IRS, and I also believe in the principles that are found in the fair tax book, in the fair tax plan, that say that our current system is confiscatory and it drives success away. And we've got to get away from that system of taxation. Let me just say this, we've got to reduce taxes. That's the first thing we have to do. We've got to reduce corporate income tax and reduce capital gains tax. That's something that we can do right when we get to Washington.
Thank you.
It penalizes all of us. We spend billions of dollars doing it. I think the fair tax is fantastic. Really, reality is that we need to have a majority in Congress, House, Senate, and a conservative president. So what I think is most important right now is radical tax cuts, and I'm hoping within the next half dozen years we can go to the fair tax or the flat tax, but the fair tax is farther along, and I support that one.
That brought the fair tax idea together wasn't with McPadden, and I read both of his books before I ever knew who McPadden was. So I've been a supporter of the fair tax for a long time.
Same here.
And yes, I do support it.
Ditto.
The IRS needs to be totally revamped, and I would support anything that would decrease the size of the IRS, abolish it. We probably know that isn't going to happen. We're going to have to maintain some type of way to keep the government going. The fair tax cannot be enacted until we repeal the 16th Amendment, and that's going to take 2/3 vote of the Senate. Okay, so when we get to that point, that's when we're going to have to look. We got to be serious. To say it's going to go up there and happen in 2 or 3 years.
That I feel that I'm going to say, I had it in my heart before I knew who Michael McPadden was. So if we get into that, we did it first. I think we've all been talking.
Is morphing our government system in such a way that they're taking Congress's power away. It seems Congress has allowed this to happen. A lot of things that are happening to our liberties are being done through regulations instead of law. What would you do to change that, if anything?
I think your point is well taken. I usually give, in my talks, there's 3 ways that we're losing our individual freedoms. We're losing them by a liberal Congress and a socialistic-minded president, so that the laws itself we're fighting against. Second thing is the court of czars that are passing executive orders and regulations around our Congress, which in my heart and mind is unconstitutional. And the third way that you don't hear mentioned very often is the United Nations. And you have these treaties that are coming through the United Nations, the UN Convention of the Child, you've got sea treaties, and you have disarmament treaties. And those will come through international law and attack our sovereignty.
They're not being controlled by senators and congressmen and presidents in Washington, because they're some of the best fighting people that there are in this world. And I have all the confidence in the world that they can take care of any national security if we allow them to do that. I've had a lot of conversations with people who have been in theater and some of the different wars we've got going on now, and they are appalled and I'm appalled with the rules of engagement they have to deal with. They've got their hands tied, or at least one of them behind their back, that we need to unleash them and finish up these wars.
Thank you for your commitment to changing America, changing the 5th District. And the battle starts here. You know, we have a great heritage in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have great heritage in this part of Virginia. You know, James Madison lived not far from here at Montpelier. We know Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. Let's be clear. This election is about returning to our founding principles. It is about returning to the vision that Thomas Jefferson and James Madison had for this country. That's what this is all about. They understood limited government. And you don't need look no further than the Constitution itself. They understood limited government. They understood free markets. And they understood individual liberties. Look at the beautiful document that is in the Bill of Rights. I always like to point out Virginia had it first in the Virginia Declaration of Rights in 1776. But friends, they understood those things, and I think that if they came back 234 years later, they would be disappointed at what we have become. We now have a congressman who has supported policies, and we have a bunch of Congress people in Washington, D.C. who don't believe in limited government. They believe in unlimited government. Government has answered every problem. They don't believe in free markets. They believe in bailouts and takeovers. They don't believe in individual liberty. They believe in a health care bill that says, we'll come into your home and tell you that you have got, as a condition of living in this country, you must have health insurance. Throwing the Constitution under the bus. Friends, we've got to change. I believe, again, we've got 7 great candidates. I believe I'm the strongest person to go up against Tom Perriello and send him home. I'd be proud to have your support on June 8th, and thank you for your commitment to the future of this country.